This episode is brought to you in partnership with Econet Wireless Zimbabwe. Hello there, Tando Book Club lovers. This season, we're going on a deep dive with some of Africa's female thought leaders. Joining me today as our guest for a 3-episode special in this series is Barbara Nyangairi. Barbara Nyangairi is the Executive Director of the Deaf Zimbabwe Trust. She holds a master's in forced migration, a BSc in public administration, and a diploma in education. Barbara has written and conducted research on deaf education, access to health for the deaf, and sign language. Barbara has a keen interest in the empowerment of the deaf and hard of hearing. She has experience in human rights, democracy, governance, elections, gender, and education. Thriving as a Stepmother Equipped for Success is her first book. As is our custom, we always begin every episode with a quote from a famous African that we believe captures the spirit and message of the book discussion we'll be having. Naturally, we've chosen a quote from Barbara's book, and the quote goes as follows. We need to appreciate that a blended family is still a legitimate family. It is just different. Only when we approach the situation of a blended family with respect can we then begin to harness the treasures and joy of what it can be when it is allowed to fulfill its highest potential. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Selena.
So, Barbara, tell us, how long would you say on average, based on your work with other women and all of the rich research and study you've done to put into your book, does it take to successfully blend a step family?
I think it takes between 5 years to 7 years for a family to successfully blend, for the children to look at each other as siblings, and for the parents to be able to have the affection similar to that of a biological parent for their children of love.
Wow, so 5 to 7 years. So
5 to
that's
7
yeah,
years.
that's some slow running.
It is a slow cooker. You take it slowly.
Low and slow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So obviously the rub here for the stepmother is the non-biological children, and for any step parent is now blending with the children in particular. We know you love the partner because you married them, right?
Absolutely,
And we know you must really love them because you married them knowing you're walking into a situation with baggage. You were bringing your own stuff, they have their own stuff. But now you're in the situation, and a lot of the friction and chafing can actually come from the children themselves. What are some of the common dilemmas a stepmother will have to face with non-biological children?
I think it's expectations. At times, I find the it's, I would look at it as a paradox that they want you to love them, but they do not want to accept the love. So it's almost like you're not showing us love, but when love is extended, it is not received. And so that is something that many stepmoms grapple with. And so you find that they get burned out. They're trying their best. They are doing everything that they can to be in the, in the good books of this child. But one thing that I've realized is that you must take it as your friend's child. We never try too much with our friends' children. We come in and we are aunt. We don't try too hard to be loved. We don't try too hard. So you get burnt out if you put too much effort. So just be natural. If you're kind, just be kind. If you're generous, just be generous. But you don't go overboard, where it's now becomes work. Because remember, it's for the long haul. Blending a family is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so in a marathon, you don't start off with 100 kilometers per hour speed slowly. And you even gain momentum as you go. Not necessarily in the first maybe 5 kilometers, you will burn out. So I think the paradox is, how do I show love? How do I show that I am well-intentioned? How do I show? But you know what? People are spirit. They sense you. They feel you. And even when they are acting up, but they know that, no, this woman is a good woman. It's me. I'm the problem. You know, a few years ago, I encountered as a girl. She was a stepdaughter. And, you know, she told me that, you know what, one of the things that I regret the most is that I made life so difficult for my stepmom. She was a good woman. I lied. I made up stories, told my dad things that had not happened. And but she's not here for me to apologize. She's late now. But I made life so difficult for her. But she was a good woman. So I think that when you are well intentioned, when you are well meaning, when you really want to do good, children know that. They in today's lingo, they sense your vibe. You know that no, this is a positive vibe, and they know it. Even when they're acting up, they know that you're a good person. So you give it time, and you don't wear yourself out trying too hard. Just be yourself. Like I said, with your friends' children, you don't try too much. You are just Auntie Barbara, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're going there, if you want to bring chocolates, that's it. You it's not I'm doing this because I want you to,
Yeah.
you know, to love me or things like that. You are just being kind because you are kind. You just show generosity. And at some point it will be reciprocated.
And really, I think not just children, all of us do feel intimidated by pressure when somebody's being overly friendly
Absolutely.
and trying too hard.
Absolutely.
It does repel more than it does attract.
Very true.
So some of the other dilemmas you speak about, or that are common dilemmas for stepmothers in the book, are traumas the children come into the marriage with, that manifest in different ways. Some children will be doing, things like bedwetting way after the age of bedwetting.
Absolutely.
And then another aspect you talk about is biological bonds with the mother or the biological parent. And then I think the third thing was really around the parentified child. Now, I just want to elaborate for me the parentified child. What is a parentified child?
It's a child who is exposed to things that they should not be exposed to. So, for example, if you as a stepmom are going through difficult times with the father of the child, and you go and pour out your heart either on your own biological child or even on the stepchild. There are times when stepmoms can find comfort in telling the stepchild about how bad their father is being, what they're doing to them, and things like that. It's giving children an emotional burden that they are not yet ready to carry. And sometimes even biological parents, when they are not in a good space, can offload some of these things on their own children. And it's really parentifying the child. They don't know how to process those things. They don't know what to do with your hurts and your pain. They don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to deal with it. So you actually giving children more burden than help. That is parentification. You know, in our culture, sometimes I think we took it as normal when the father does not pay school fees and you rant it on the child. Your father did this and your father is not buying food in this house and things like that. The child can't do anything about it. You are loading off things a child that they can't handle.
Definitely. And really that's not being a parent, and that's not being adult. Like, you are now taking on the form of being a child and placing your child in the form of being a parent.
To give you advice, to fight for you, to make the boundaries for you. So you find children become overprotective about their parents because they have prior knowledge and prior information about certain things.
Yeah. So often you've talked about the low and slow method. Take it easy, one step at a time. But there does come a point where enough is enough, and the stepmother has to put her foot down. When does the stepmother know that, okay, now we've come to the point where we've cooked the stew? Enough is enough. Low and slow isn't going to cut it. We've got to put a line in the sand.
You must accept that at times this child will never like you, ever. It's not going to happen. And at that point, you are the adult. You make a choice about what kind of relationship you want to have with that child who will never accept you in their father's life. Or you know that, you know what, I've tried. So sometimes you reason with someone. I remember at one point, we were having a conversation, and my son's phone rang, and it was his mom. And then he started crying. And I said, "Why are you crying?" We were having fun the previous moment. And so he cut the phone and he says, "I want to go to mom." I said, "But you're coming from there." So, so I made a decision that, you know what, son, God has given you two homes. You have our home, you have your mom's home. You are a very lucky boy. Even my daughters don't have the privilege of having two homes to go to. They're stuck with us. But you have two homes. So enjoy us. When you're with us, enjoy being with us. When you go to mom, enjoy being with mom. Because you have two homes. And he says, "Really?" I said, "Yes." And he wiped off his tears and we had fun. So it's really about how do you approach the complexities that happen and the drama that could be potentially created. I could have been very angry and annoyed and say, you're just coming from there. Now you're with us. You're going to be here. Whether you like it or not, it's our time with you now. But no, it had to be pleasant and with wisdom so that he understands that there's no reason. But if you genuinely want to go, so I asked him, "Do you want to be with us or you want to be with mom again?" He says, "No, I want to be here." I said, "So that's all right. Let's have fun." And that was it. It never happened again.
So I like the example you used, because I think when we imagine putting our foot down, we imagine it to be a very forceful, conflict-driven sort of approach. But you were firm, yet pleasant and wise at the same time. And so that's really quite a unique sort of blend of attributes to bring to the response. You're putting a boundary in place, but you're doing it with firmness and as well as pleasantness.
Stepmothers don't have the luxury of putting it down forcefully. It's always going to be misconstrued.
Yeah. So you do have to pause and think. So for blended families where the blending is as a result of widowhood, so the father is a widower or the mother is a widow, you give specific advice about how the step parent can come into that situation and navigate that. Because, with a divorce, people come to a point where they're like, we no longer love each other. But with with death, the love is in many cases still hot.
Absolutely.
Right? So it doesn't, it's just the life is cut off abruptly. So you talk about maintaining a realistic memory of the deceased spouse. What is that about?
I think one of the things that I've discovered, possibly it could be in just our Shona culture, maybe other, people view it differently. But I think a realistic picture when one of the spouse is deceased is to bring them back in a realistic way in the home. So, for example, many women do not want to talk about the deceased. They don't want to see pictures. They don't want to see anything. They don't even want their children to memorialize their mom who is late. Yet there is nothing wrong with that. They should be able to put pictures of their mom in their rooms. There is different love. They will love you in a different way, but their mother will always be alive in their heart. So it's making sure that we don't make this woman to become an elephant in the room, a perfect woman. So one of the things that I always ask women, I remember chatting to a lady who's she was taking care of a daughter whose mom had died. I said, "So do you talk about her? Encourage her to talk about her mom because she has memory of her mother." So she says, "Yes." So when something happens that's not good and you don't like some behaviors, you ask, how would mom have responded to this situation? So that you balance your response and mom's response, so that she knows, mama would not have tolerated this. My mom would have beaten me. So you see now, that's the reason why I'm saying it's not good. Because I would like to protect you. I would like you to be safe. And so it's making sure that the late person is not a big, perfect woman, that she is a real person. And you memorialize together. Because this woman, though late, is their mother, is in their heart. on the day they passed on, what is wrong with buying flowers? What is wrong with today we are remembering mom? Tell us about. I don't know why African women, particularly maybe Shona women, feel threatened by dead people, and you don't want to bring their memory and help the child memorialize their parents in a good way with you, to even be able to talk to you that, you know what, mom was something. She would do this, you do that, you do that. You also allow for healing. You also show her that you are not threatened by the memory of her mother, and you can relate better that way.
Yeah, very good advice there. Then for the couple themselves, how can remarried couples in a blended family keep the love that started the whole story alive, especially under all of these stresses we've been talking about? What are some of the tools and tactics they should employ to keep the root of this family, which is their remarriage, still romantic, still loving?
The marriage relationship is the reason for blending. And so in the work, in the chores, in the assignments, in all the homework and things like that, the couple can actually drown and not find time to connect and come back together and say, why are we even here? So it's very important to reconnect, to find space. Remember, after our wedding, there was no honeymoon. How do you do a honeymoon? You've got school run on Monday. When you have work, there's sports, there's that, there is absolutely no time to get to know each other in that space. So you create opportunity, you make sure that the relationship stays strong.
Definitely. And then as a stepmother, what should your goal be for your spouse's relationship with their biological children?
Give them time. There's no reason to be everywhere with them all the time. Give them time. Give them time to be together, alone, by themselves. Give them time to come. Because when you then come back together, the relationship is better. They are able to talk. I don't think it's very necessary to feel that every time they are together, they are talking about you. I don't think there's much to talk about, really, if you're doing a good job, you know. So allow, even for me, I found that even my daughters also needed time with me, to just be with me and to be with their mom, to talk. And I would also check in, you know, you must actually encourage your spouse to check in with the children. Are you okay? Is everything all right? What is not going on? What is good? What is bad? What would you like us to improve? In our home, we have what we call board meetings, and they're done at the dinner table, where I'm told, mom shouts too much. And it's everyone, it's everyone telling me that, I think you need to put some brakes on, you shout too much. I don't know what your problem is, you know. So it's about then coming together, but allow for them to check in with each other and to find out how things are going. Sometimes to also not feel that you have taken over their dad, you know. Give them time, allow them dates, allow them to be together.
Definitely. And I mean, what you want is a happy spouse. And your spouse can't be happy if they're in an unhappy relationship with their child. Discipline is something you cite as a hot issue of contention among remarried couples in particular. What are the pitfalls? What are the problems with disciplining children?
Like I said earlier, we need to defer discipline to the biological parent until such a time that trust is built. Many mothers come in and think that they can start with being a disciplinarian. The other issue that's problematic in blended, not even blended only, but even biological families, is the differences in disciplining style. They are, in most cases, most husbands and wives do not agree on the manner in which children are to be disciplined in their home, even for their own biological children. Sometimes the mom thinks the father is too much, sometimes the father thinks the mom is too excessive, and things like that. So it's very important to understand each of your discipline, approach. For me, I am very strict, but my husband is very laissez-faire. He will allow the children to do that. And sometimes I'm like, that's not right. And so, but for me, as long as the trust was not built, I could not rebuke, I could not correct, I could not instruct. I would just say, I don't think this is good. So you offer advice. It can be taken or it can be, not taken. And that's it. You don't take it personal. That's their approach. That's their style. Until such a time that they will trust you to say, okay, you say this is the way it should be. So this is what we're doing.
And I think it also takes a lot of grace to appreciate that people do things differently. Like 5 plus 1 equals 6, 3 plus 3 still equals 6. You're still getting the same result. And I think that's what it's like with measures of discipline for some people. Like some of us come from very command, authoritarian backgrounds and houses, very militant. It's like,
Absolutely.
yes or no, please, sir, thank you, ma'am. And others, it's more fluid and it's more flexible. And we're getting good outcomes from both. But I think because we tend to liken things that are dissimilar as though, well, then there's something wrong there. There's something not right there. And it's really, really challenging when you have two different discipline styles.
Very, very true. But the other challenge that has also come in blended families is that people tend to be harder on the child that's not their biological child. They tend to be harder. And the accusation for most stepmoms is over disciplining, that you are disciplined for everything. I remember a story I had when a child visitors came in and she was asking for Coke. And so when the visitors left, the stepmom bought 2 liters of Coke and says, I want you to drink it now. You embarrassed me when the visitors were here. But really, any child would do that. It's really about not being too hard and accepting that children are children. They will behave in certain ways and that may not acceptable, but how do you do it? So over-disciplining is something, and then turning a blind eye when it's your biological child who has done the same thing. But children notice, children see, and are able to say, oh, okay, I did this and this was the result. She has done this and this has been the result. So there is no equality of treatment in this home.
And children are very good at also turning that against you or dividing and conquering the parents.
Absolutely.
Using these little data points that they collect around discipline. You give key areas, 2 key areas among many, in terms of how to set up the blended family for success as a stepmother. And there are areas around communication and goal setting. And there are 2 that I found very, very interesting that couples really need to address right off the bat at the beginning. One of them is vision, one of them is finances. Talk to me about vision.
I think for me, vision is what do you want your family to be? And what it looks like at the start is not what it can be if you work hard, if you are patient and are ready to put in the work. So the vision for me, I did not want to create a dysfunctional family. I didn't want to contribute to dysfunction in my children, for them to look back and say, oh, that woman was mean. I wanted, I start with an analogy that I started to think that when I die and my son is asked to give a speech at, in that service, and my coffin is there, will they say, I have something good to say about this woman? Or they'll say, I don't want to say anything because they fear to say very wrong things. Or if they were truthful to say, okay, write your eulogy of Barbara, what will they write about me? And for me, I was looking at the end, and that end allowed me to then work backwards to say, okay, so for me to be seen in a good way, in a kindly way, I have to sow kindness. I have to sow love. I have to, to be intentional about my actions today to be able to sow a good harvest in the future. So the vision is what is it that we want to see? What kind of a family do you want to build? I think this goes for any family, not just blended families, but all families need to have a vision. What is it that you want to achieve with your family? When the children think about you, what do they think about? Are they happy memories? Are they bad memories? And you know what? What happens in our childhood affects our adulthood, including the people that we marry in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so good fruit. Even in terms of your children's marriages and the people they become in society. What about finances?
Finances are a hot topic. And they're not just hot for blended families. Finances are hot for all families, but they are hotter in blended families because money shows what we value. Money shows our priorities. Money shows what we think is important. Where we put our money is where our heart is.
Yeah.
Even the Bible says, where your heart treasure is, that is where your heart is. And so money matters in blended married families should be discussed at the onset. The expectations. If you come in with an expectation of that they will do this and assumptions, and it doesn't happen, you'll be very disappointed.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did with my husband when we married was we were discussing how do we pay children's fees, how do we take care of the house expenses, how do we take care of our obligations like our parents, our siblings, if there is need and there is need to be able to provide support there. And in the initial stages of our lives, we agreed that you sort yourself, I sort myself. We come in and say, what are the home expenses? And we contribute towards that. That's it. And at that point, that is where we were in our marriage. It was acceptable. I needed not to be offended that he said I should pay my daughter's fees. Now he's that the father. He doesn't feel like the father at that point. Of course, the society has called him father, but he doesn't feel like father. He's just got additional daughters added to his life, you know. So with time, things just started changing. It was very organic. I don't remember a point where we said, okay, now, you know. So I remember my husband going to my daughter's school and sorting out the bills there. And he'll be called by my daughter's surname, which is different from his. And he came and says, what the school people did. So I said, what did you just say? I was too tired to even, say, I'm not, this is my name, so too much explanation. But it was organic. It was organic. I also had to invest in my sons. I also had to sow seeds of love, seeds of generosity in my sons. When I went out of the country on work assignments and I bring in parcels, I intentionally brought more for my sons than for my daughters. Because the eyes are looking, everyone is looking who has been brought what is happening here. And as I continued to sow that, the finances became organic. Now in our home, there is no talk about who does what, where, how. It becomes organic. But the conversations need to be done at the onset. Don't make assumptions, or even be mean in the sense that I remember a conversation on social media, I don't know whether you saw it, where this woman came and said, you know what, my company pays school fees for my daughter, and she's in a private school, and I've remarried, and my husband's children are in a government school. Now he's saying that either pull your child out of the private school or you take my children and you put them to the private school so that they're the same level. It doesn't work like that. It is not necessary at that point. There are things that will happen organically if we have a good spirit. And this woman was looking for advice that what do I do? It means that these conversations were not heard, because if they had conversations about finances, they'll talk about, so for me, my children, my children's fees are paid for by my company, and the company can afford private school education, but his children are in a government school. So how do we continue? It should never be an issue in the family where children then begin to insult each other about the school they're going, and that you are going to a Guashu school, I'm going to a what school. There should be respect and understanding about those issues, but conversations must be heard.
Yeah, and the sooner they have them, the better.
And they're not easy conversations.
They're not, especially conversations about money.
Absolutely.
Like you called it very, very appropriately at the beginning when you said, amongst ourselves biologically, even between friends, I think money is one of the most difficult conversations to have. In your book, you talk about communication, and there's one particular thing you talk about in terms of raising issues to resolve them. And you talk about stating the observation, then your feeling, and then articulating the need. So I think many people would be like, yeah, okay, I'm with you on observation. And then many people would be like, yes, I can definitely name my feelings. Why is it important to articulate the need?
It's very important to be able to say, this is how I feel, and without accusing, because it's how I feel. And the language, I think there's so many counselors and documents that have been written about how to approach issues, even between friends. Selena, when you do this, this is how it makes me feel. It makes me feel like I'm not important to you. It makes me feel like I'm not worthy, and it hurts my feelings. So it's not, I'm not blaming you. You know, it's not like you do this to me, you do this to me. And the need, what is it that I want to change? You know, the need for me is, I would like you to be more respectful. I would like you to listen to me. I would like you to. So I remember recently when I had a conversation with my daughter, I told her how I was feeling about what she was doing, and she refuted. And I said, no, no, no. You know what? When you do that, you invalidate how I feel. You need to validate my feelings first. I understand how you feel, but this is what I thought. Because it's like the car seat thing. I could have been very angry and have said bad things, and it would have escalated to "Ahadi vana vangu." But it's just about a car seat. Kuti kufront, you know. So how do you then approach that issue? You know, I feel that the children need to know that I am your wife, and so I sit here. This
Yeah.
is my place of honor, you know. And as we go forward, this is how I think it should happen. But it's the way we say it, it's the timing, it's the tone. And you know what? The word of God says a harsh response stirs up anger, but a gentle answer provides reconciliation. So it's the tone with which we say, which is why we should never be angry when we confront things in a blended family. We need to calm down. I remember times, you know, in the first 7 years, it was fire. Lots of things happening there. I remember one afternoon after church, we are having breakfast, and my husband called out to ask our son that, have you had tea? And I'm like, so he actually thinks that we gave everybody breakfast except him, you know. And so in my heart, I'm thinking, why doesn't he cook the breakfast himself to give him? I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah, it escalates. Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so this boy is going to eat when you are here now. I didn't say them, but the temptation was so there. And I knew that if I had voiced those things there, they wouldn't have, you know, it wouldn't have ended well. So I calmed down. Of course, I was biting my tongue, you know, the woman thing, putting water so that you don't speak. And then I said, I think we need to go out. We need to have a talk. So we went out, and I said, you know what? When you asked if our son had eaten, I really felt offended. I felt that you thought that I would give everyone food except him. And the fact that you asked in front of everyone means that everyone was looking to me to say, so sometimes you don't give him food, and things like that. So it didn't go down well with me. So, I'm sorry, I didn't think it. I was just asking, you know, just out of concern. But then it means that we are now more intentional about what we do, and we think before we say things because of how they can be interpreted and seen. And so
Very, very powerful, and very, very powerful that we are using those conversations to create a platform to articulate what we need that makes the relationship constructive and productive, as opposed to, this is what I feel, you're wrong, and then we are breaking faith in the relationship. But we're running out of time, and I have so much more I would have loved to talk about in the book. But then that's a cue to all of you who have been listening and watching to get the book for yourself, Thriving as a Stepmother, Equipped for Success. You can get it via print on demand on Amazon or Kindle on Amazon, and anywhere else that they can get the book at this stage, or to start at Amazon.
the Celebration Bookshop.
The Celebration Center Bookshop. So at Word Wide, 162 Swan Drive, you can get your own hard copy there. You can follow Barbara Nyangairi on Instagram and send her a DM, and she will come and talk to you about blended families and give you advice on how to be an equipped, successful stepmother and lead your family into a thriving stage of blended. So, Barbara, we always end every book club episode with a reading from the author, and we want to give you the last word. What have you prepared for us today?
Thank you very much. I'm going to read on the choice to love on page 126. Love is a decision. In a blended family, it is a decision that must be made daily because love does not come naturally for children who are not your biological children. As a stepmother, you must be intentional to exercise love. God can give us supernatural love for us stepchildren if we ask Him. You must work on your heart and put on love, as Paul in the Bible encourages the church of Colossians. In my journey as a stepmother, I prayed for love to grow and manifest in my heart, in my words, my actions, and my relationship with my boys. I realized that on my own, I could not love the children I did not give birth to in the way they need and desire from a parent unless I ask God to help me to love them as He does. I needed supernatural help. Have you noticed that as a woman, you can love and be good to your friends' children? You can love and be good to your neighbor's children more easily than you can love your husband's child. Confusing, is it not?
Definitely very powerful. Thank you, Barbara. It's been another great edition of the book club as we've talked to Barbara Nyangairi. And it's been a great third season of the book club as we've taken a deep dive, talking to some of our most loved and favorite local African female thought leaders. We'll see you again for the next season. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, and stay true. Goodbye. This episode was brought to you in partnership with Econet Wireless Zimbabwe.